Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the profound mystical vision of Emmanuel Vaughan-Lee. We are going on a bit of a journey, one that steers us away from those sterile mechanical five-point plans we usually hear in climate discussions, and instead points us toward a deep living reconnection with the Earth. So if you've ever felt like our approach to the environment is missing something fundamental, something rooted in the soul, you're in exactly the right place. Let's dive in.
Right off the bat, let's confront our modern crisis. We often walk around feeling like the modern world is completely disenchanted, completely stripped of mystery. We go to work, we stare at our screens, and we act as if everything around us is just matter and commerce. But Vaughan-Lee argues that profound magic is literally all around us. It's in the birdsong outside your window, in the vast landscapes of our dreams, in our very breath. The magic hasn't left. Our attention has. When we actually pause to look at the living world, like golden sun dancing on the surface of rippling water, we start to see what we've been missing. Vaughan-Lee suggests that instead of humanity being exiled from the divine, we have actively exiled the divine ourselves. We've done this by treating the earth purely as dead matter. We view forests as timber, oceans as fisheries. We see a resource to extract, rather than a sacred, breathing entity that we are actually a part of. Section 1, a mystical foundation. Before we explore his specific philosophy of nature, we really need to understand the unique lens Vaughan-Lee views the world through. Growing up in London, his childhood was, pretty unusual. He lived with a formidable Russian Sufi master right downstairs in his house. That meant meditation and ancient wisdom were just a daily reality for him. Later, he actually dropped out of high school at 16 to play jazz bass. And through the improvisational world of jazz, he learned a vital lesson. Real creative power, whether you're making music on stage or exploring spirituality, lies in the space between the notes. It's found in the silence, the pauses, and in leaving the ego totally behind to serve something greater than yourself. Things took a massive turn when his family moved from urban London to a California coastal redwood forest. Spending his days surfing the commanding energy of the Pacific and walking through ancient woods grounded his spirituality firmly into the physical earth. He even witnessed a devastating fire tear through the region, leaving total destruction. But then he saw the forest miraculously rebirth itself through specific pine cones that literally required the fire's intense heat to open. This profound cycle of destruction and renewal solidified his belief that the Creator isn't separate from creation. The earth itself is a sacred expression of the divine. Section 2, Understanding Earth Time. This concept requires a total shift in how we experience our day-to-day reality.
To truly connect with the planet, he argues, we have to stop viewing the world through linear time, what the ancient Greeks called chronos, the rigid, ticking clock, the deadlines, the endless forward progression. Instead, we need to step into Earth time, or kairos. This is living, cyclical, non-mental time. It's about experiencing time much like the changing of the seasons, or the ebb and flow of the tide. Time measured by moments of presence, not by seconds on a watch. Because of this worldview, Vaughan-Lee explicitly avoids those mechanical, checklist-style plans. He points out that if you just give people a 5-step checklist, you end up with superficial fixes, like simply buying an electric car and calling it a day, which totally fail to reach the core of the ecological crisis. So he offers an anti-5-point plan. It's a distillation of spiritual principles rooted deeply in sensory experience and profound love, rather than just intellectual problem-solving. Basically, we have to feel our way out of this crisis, not just think our way out. To enter Earth time, we have to unmoor ourselves from linear thinking. We have to strip away our human arrogance, stop assuming we have all the answers, and approach the natural world as absolute beginners, returning to a pure state of wonder and humility. And in that quiet state of wonder, we discover his mystical concept of emptiness and form. Once our ego construct, that illusion of a separate self that's constantly striving and consuming, is removed, a profound emptiness is revealed. But it's not a cold, dark void. Drawing on his Sufi tradition, he states, this interconnected space is entirely filled with love. Love is the central axis of all things. It is the fundamental, shared language holding the entire web of life together. Moving on to Section 3, Observer to Participant. How do we actually take these abstract concepts and live them in our daily routines? Well, Vaughan-Lee outlines a really beautiful progression for building kinship. First, our intentional interactions with nature leave an imprint on us. We notice the smell of the rain or the texture of tree bark. Then, as we return to those same spaces, those imprints build a bond.
The environment recognizes us, and we recognize it. Over time, that bond evolves into a deep kinship, a real sense of family. And finally, we move from being distant observers of the Earth to active participants, engaging in a transformative communion with the living world.
Section 4. The practice of communion. Now, you might be wondering what communion actually looks like in practice.
It's a huge question. How do we maintain this sacred connection amidst the busy streets, the ringing phones, and the constant noise of modern society? He insists it can't just be something we do on a remote retreat once a year. It has to be integrated right into our everyday lives, right in the messy reality of the present. To achieve this, he offers a surprisingly simple practice you can do anywhere, even on a concrete city sidewalk during your lunch break. It's a walking meditation. First, you set an intention before stepping outside. Next, bring your full attention to your breath. Then, intentionally align the rhythm of your breath to your footsteps, maybe taking 3 steps per out-breath. When your mind inevitably wanders to your grocery list, gently return to the breath. This simple, spiritual technology quiets the mind and allows us to truly, physically experience the landscape we are moving through. Section 5. Seeds for the future. As we look toward an uncertain ecological future, this practice of communion becomes absolutely vital. This brings us to a really powerful concept. Vaughan-Lee warns that knowledge stored on computer servers and hard drives will eventually corrupt and disappear. Technologies break down, but the human heart? The human heart can act as a living time capsule. By transforming our inner selves through love, we can internally hold the essential language of ecological kinship for the future of the planet. We become carriers of a sacred memory. Just like indigenous cultures have held ancient systems of knowledge inwardly to keep the thread of humanity alive through incredibly dark times, we have a profound responsibility today. We're called to hold this spiritual ecology within our very beings as a foundational blueprint. By doing this, we keep the resonant song of the earth alive, preserving it safely within us for whatever new world emerges from the rubble of our current crisis. And despite the genuine grief of our climate crisis, Vaughan-Lee insists we can't just wallow in despair. Quoting the playwright Bertolt Brecht, he reminds us that there must be singing in the dark times. Even if it is 80% misery out there, we absolutely must have 20% joy. The earth continuously offers abundance and beauty even as she is harmed. We have to mirror that joy, acting as hopeful midwives birthing the next world rather than just mourning the current one. So, I'll leave you with this thought to ponder on your next walk. When you look at the towering environmental challenges around us, will you remain a distant observer? Or are you ready to step into Earth time, embrace the magical reality of the present, and become a living time capsule for the future? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it inspires you to find the space between the notes in your own life.